Hello, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapisa CBD. Now, JoyNews investigations have uncovered how some officials of the Ghana Immigration Service demand monies to allow illegal entry into the country through unapproved routes near the Aflao border. The officials were filmed on camera receiving various sums of money from the travelers on these routes. This is in spite of President Akufo-Addo's announcement of a closure of land borders to limit the spread of COVID-19. Kwetenate reports.
As part of government's effort to limit the spread of COVID-19, President Akufo-Addo announced the closure of the country's land borders. This closure forced a lot of traders to use unapproved routes along the already porous borders. So the JoyNews investigative team went to Aflao to check how travelers and traders are able to cross the borders, which are supposed to be closed. Here at Aflao, I meet this commercial motor operator. I decide to call him Peter. He's been riding this bike in this town and carrying passengers across the border for many years. Now, with this official closure of the border, he still rides to Togo and returns with passengers every day.
Because people every day, but it's collect money for people.
How much do they collect?
10 cities. Togo side 10 cities. Yeah.
We Ghana side too.
Ghana side 10 cities.
Maybe his point is just a claim. So I decided to verify. He's given me a ride from Ghana to Togo. We meet this official of the Ghana Immigration Service at one of the unapproved routes.
Where are you coming from? Togo. You are coming from Togo. Are you a Ghanaian Togolese?
He's demanding 5 Ghana Cities to allow us use the unapproved route into Ghana. We pay him and he allows the investigative team entry.
So, me, I can tell you that you are not from Ghana, neither. Bring 5 cities and go. The money will go. Yeah, I will pay you. When you read the office there, nobody is going to take these 5 cities. He's going to do every document for you before you leave there.
At another checkpoint on the unapproved route, this heavily built man also requests that we pay 5 Ghana Cedis to allow us passage into Togo. We count at least 2 persons who are made to pay similar amounts to a man in mufti, while Togolese security officials look on. After a long negotiation with a man in his early 30s at another unapproved route, agreed to let the investigative team pass after we paid 5 Ghana Cedis. After crossing into Togo, we meet a man in his late 40s. He demands the team pays 5 Ghana Cedis in order to allow us entry into Togo. He rejects a 2 Ghana Cedi offer on the basis that the money will depreciate when changed into CFA franc. Clearly, the borders may be closed, but some unscrupulous individuals have created an avenue for the influx of foreigners amid a raging pandemic. Kwetenate's report, JoyNews, Aflao.
Head of Public Affairs Units at the Ghana Immigration Service, Superintendent Michael Amwako Atsa, says his outfit will probe the evidence and punish errant officers if found culpable.
The borders of Ghana, as far as I know, and it's landlocked. The president has not given any directives that the border should be open apart from the international airport, Kotoka International Airport. The borders are closed. And there are no fees charged at the points of entry, no. As long as one meets the requirements for entry or exit. That's when the borders were opened. Then you are free to exit the country or to enter. We don't charge fees at the points of entry or departure.
We found out that some immigration officials and middlemen have pitched camps and take fees from individuals and either allow them into Ghana or into Togo. Is this something that has come to your attention?
Yes, definitely. We work with intelligence as frontline border security agency. We work in intelligence, and this came to the fore, and the Comptroller General has given some directives to that effect to all border commanders, even including regional commanders, to ensure that they constantly monitor their officers on the ground, especially at the patrol bases, and also ensure as a means of deterrent that officers on patrol or on field operations wear their name tags, so that if anyone should misconduct himself or herself, then the members of the public can identify them by name and make an official complaint. And also, they are also to have constant engagement by visiting the officers on the grounds to interact with them, and apart from raising their morale, to also to ensure that they conduct the operations within the confines of our regulations.
We have found some officials and even middlemen who are taking advantage of the closed border, and even those who use unapproved routes and are taking monies from them to allow them entry. We were actually part of a team that experimented this. If this comes to your attention, what does the Immigration Service intend doing about it?
If we watch what you have, and yes, it shows or depicts officers of the Ghana Immigration Service misconducting themselves in such a manner as you are describing, I believe the appropriate sanctions will be meted out. Somewhere last year, yes, again, I said based on intelligence, 4 officers at the Aflaw Sector Command who misconducted themselves in the way you are describing now were immediately interdicted by the Comptroller General.
In the Ashanti region, the body of an adult male has been found beheaded in the Bosomtwe district of the Ashanti region. A search party of the police and community members led to retrieval of the head about 20 meters away from the location of the body. Circumstances leading to his death are not yet known. It comes in the wake a number of murders yet to be resolved. Nana Ejura was at the scene with the police and community search party. Here's his report.
A woman in the area is said to have heard a loud cry which ceased briefly. Some residents later found the fresh body of the deceased dumped on a pathway. The attention of the police was drawn to it immediately. Few minutes after 1, the police came in and picked the body of the deceased from the spot. Now residents, together with the police, have formed a search party to go into the bushes and help find the head of the deceased. It took few minutes to find the head, together with a mobile phone and a wallet containing cash. Assembly member Samuel Kwai says the deceased is unknown to them.
We waited for the crime scene from Ashanti region. So they came, they did what they have to do. They made a thorough search for the head. And indeed, we went and found his head down there, getting close to the stream. Yeah, so that is what I saw or what I witnessed. Actually, I don't know him. I've never seen him.
The head was found with many machete cuts. The area is under development with many uncompleted houses. Residents who are seeing this for the first time fear for their lives. We are living in fear. Now we have to be careful and know where to go. She says, I am sad and afraid. How can a human being commit such a crime? These are stories we hear on a daily basis, but today is my first time witnessing anything like this, she says. A white Toyota Vitz vehicle with registration number GE 317021 was retrieved from the scene. Crime scene investigation team from the Central Police Office have commenced investigations. For JoyNews, Nana Ejura, Feyiase.
Now, one of the Ejura gunshot survivors has lost his right leg. Doctors at the Komfo Anokye Teaching Hospital were compelled to amputate his leg to save his life. Awal Misbah is one of 6 persons who sustained gunshot wounds during a protest at Ejura last week. Member of Parliament for Ejura, Seshadumase Bao Mohammed Brima, is demanding compensation for the victims. Mohammed Nuruddin has been speaking to the families of the victims and the MP at the Konfanachi Teaching Hospital.
Everyone, including him, was crying. Ejura chief had to call a doctor before he was attended to. The doctor said the only treatment option left was to amputate the leg.
It's okay. It's okay.
I want 40 years.
Yeah.
And only the only Pragia and Oko fan the Pragia. To Oko fan the Pragia Oko. And one is so to say it to uncome, Kokam crank, and one is so to say it to a fan as switch. Into about 10 and no who said Bakuswabo. Nenai. No one saw a Ochashi and a time about hospital. In Edinburgh Hospital. And no more transfer and Koji and Quanta. Ya horse or Muya and the lab near you who are no more transfer and badgy. Jadin badgy and no Muya and the lab near when Yaman Omka said 9 days so much.
A lot of things. Yeah, I think 3 days today, he went to theater. They said that the gun has destroyed his lungs, intestine. Yeah.
They've done the surgery.
Yeah, they have done the surgery. So terrible. So terrible.
Why?
It's so terrible. Because it can't happen that way. If someone is doing that thing, you can't shoot a gun. You understand? Because he was not at that place. He was standing somewhere and the gun hit him.
So he was not
among them. He was standing somewhere and the gun hit him. The soldier's gun.
I feel very sad and very disappointed in the Regional Security Council, especially the regional minister, Honorable Simon Osemes, because this incident happened somewhere around, I think about 6 days ago, and it was reported that 6 people had been shot, and that 2 had died, and that 4 were receiving gunshot injuries and have been referred to the hospitals. So, and per the narration of the regional minister, he said he deployed the soldiers to Ejura. If you deploy the soldiers, and the fallout was that there were casualties, 2 died, 4 injured, so you only take care of the dead, and you send delegations upon delegations to visit the homes of those who are dead, not thinking about those who got injured. That is very disappointing. That is unacceptable. And I demand as the representative of the people of Ejura that the Regional Security Council acts immediately to take up the medical bills of the victims and then also ensure that they are adequately compensated, because it was not true, judging from the narration of this gentleman, it's not true, no fault of his that he's lying here. It is through the recklessness and the wanton deployment of the military that has caused this situation. I have said once and again that the wanton deployment of military into our security, internal security operations is not helping this nation, and it's one too many. Anywhere that the military have gone, we have had casualties. It is high time that we put a stop.
In the central region, the Ghana National Association of Teachers is asking government to release the capitation grants to the basic schools to enable the schools function effectively. According to Senate, heads of basic schools have had to resort to other means to keep the schools running because they can't speak of their predicament. At the Central Regional Conference to elect regional leaders of NAT, Central Regional Chairman of the Association, Reverend Isaac Osu, beseeched government to perform its responsibilities to the schools to make life comfortable for teachers and the children. Richard Kojoyako has more in the following reports.
In opening the conference, Central Regional Chairman of NAT, who retained same position after the conference, charged government to pay outstanding capitation grant arrears to the basic schools to make the running of the schools effective. Mr. Owusu cautioned some teachers and a section of the public who always taint issues that are about the welfare of teachers and children with politics to desist from such acts.
Head teachers of the basic school, with open school, till date, there is no single capitation in the school. So if we have a lot of issues and we are addressing to our employer, please, as unions, we don't know any political party. The person we know is our employer, and the employer has no name. Government will come, government will go. So those of you who feel that Owusu is an NDC man and he's making the government unpopular, it is very unfortunate.
A senior lecturer with the School of Economics at the University of Cape Coast, Dr. Mark Amma, entreated the leadership of NAT to show leadership to protect the ethics of the teaching profession.
Focus on raising issues about critical classroom conditions such as class sizes, availability, and effective use of teaching resources, staffing of deprived schools, and curriculum policy implementation challenges for redress. While fighting for your members also demonstrates commitment to ensuring high productivity in the education service. Openly show your displeasure in cases of high rate of teacher absenteeism and unethical conduct.
National President of NAT, Philippa Larson, implored teachers to plan towards their future so they don't retire as paupers.
My clarion call is to work together and make sure each and every one of us owns his or her own accommodation before we retire. That is what I want all my members to do. And I want to see every member of NAT, whether you are a new teacher or whatever, irrespective of the number of years you have left, better late than never. While you are in your own accommodation, I want to advise you to pay rent. And that rent could be invested into other things that will yield you better dividends.
The conference elected new executive of the association that saw the regional chairman retain his position. For JoyNews, Richard Kwejenyako, Cape Coast.
Now, some 134 students and a staff of Achimota School have tested positive for COVID-19, with most cases said to be the new Delta variant. According to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje, the first 3 cases were detected in some students between June 14 and 16 this year. Briefing the press on Sunday explained that the development sparked a mass testing regime in the school. In all, 843 persons in the school, including students and staff, were sampled as of July 1st, 2021. He said out of the 550 samples received, 135 returned positive.
The 14th and the 16th of June 2021, 3 students presented to the Achimota school sick bay with an influenza-like symptom like cough and fever, among others. All 3 were investigated for COVID-19 in line with the laid down protocols. The 3 posted positive, prompting the activation of the Public Health Emergency Response Team of the Greater Accra region and led by the Okaikwe North Municipality where the school falls. All 3 students were isolated following existing protocols. Other symptomatic students, which are contacts, were identified and listed, and also tested for COVID-19. And all the contacts before doing testing was put under mandatory quarantine until the results came. So far, as at the 3rd of July, because of an enhanced approach to trying to contain the situation, we've done about 843 students and staff have been sampled. 348 of them are boarding students, 459 are day students. 36 of them are teaching and non-teaching staff have been tested. We have received results for about 550 samples out of the 843 samples. In fact, yesterday, over 250 samples were taken. And so those are the results we are waiting. I'm sure by the end of the day, the results will be in and be able to come up more clearly. So far, of the 550, 135 tested positive. All the 135 cases at the time of diagnosis were either asymptomatic or had very mild to moderate illness. One staff was also recorded positive, and about to test, that's about 89% students and staff have recovered, accounting for 65.5% so far. So the active case, the number who are still in carrying the virus, about 46, as I mentioned earlier. We had a significant number of the initial one we did in Achimota as the Delta variant.
And that's how we end the AM News. My name is Mapito CBD, and the AM Show continues with Benjamin.
Well, of course, thanks to Mapito CBD for bringing us the news, and thanks to you for staying now for the news review. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm the Lone Ranger for today, and let's get into the salient matters. But before we do, I actually just wanted to contemplate this bit that for a country ranked recently by the Global Peace Index, of being the second most peaceful country in Africa, and the happenings over the last week, it leaves a lot to be desired. And these are things that we ought to really be giving some hard thought to as a people. But let's dig into the papers now, and we'll start with the Daily Graphic newspaper. PDS loses ECG assets management case. There's also Katanga Unity Halls clash over SRC vetting. There's Ghana others celebrate China's malaria feat. We'll be telling you a bit more about that. China finally eradicating malaria, and Cuba doing so a long time ago. Of course, they have to deal with dengue fever, but there's also Achimota School Delta outbreak. Health Service tackles a virus. I'll bring you more stories from the Daily Graphic newspaper, but let me say a very good morning to Joseph Akable, who joins the conversation via Zoom. Joseph, good morning.
Good morning, Ben.
How are you doing?
Great. I hope you're doing well.
Very well here, very well. And let me just let you, take us through the papers that you have very quickly, and I'll come back into the studio. So what papers are you going to be looking at, Joseph?
So I'll start off with the Daily Guide. The Daily Guide, the front page, has this story about that presidential pardon that was granted Abu Gapele. So the headline is Nana releases jailed ex-NDC MP, comes along with his photograph. And Commodity Exchange connects more markets. Hands off ECG court throws out PDS, also on the front page. And Sports Ministry signs big deal for Black Stars others. 2,127 students test positive for COVID-19, also on the front page. In terms of the stories inside the papers, there are some issues related to the Sports Ministry signing big deal for the Black Stars. The day is Footballer of the Year, also in the inside pages of the Daily Guide. The final front page now has this story about 1.9 billion cedi judgment debt paid in 20 years. Every government since 2000 cost judgment debt. That's according to reports. And KNUST suspends SRC Elections Committee to investigate disturbances. 34 active cases of Delta variant COVID-19 confirmed in Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. And Dr. Bawumia, National Chief Imam, called for calm after Ejura shooting incident. Closing gender gap critical to nation building. That's according to the Chief of Staff, also on the front page of the Finder newspaper. And the last one for me will be that of the Daily Dispatch that has this story. Abu Jinapo justifies burning of excavators. And another story here about the Ejura shooting. I sanction military deployment in Ejura. That's according to the regional minister. And women remain critical in the development of every sector. Chief of Staff saying so. And the last one here, Accra Academy launches 90th anniversary celebration. Also on the front page of the Daily Dispatch.
Super, Joseph. Let me come back into the studio and briefly take us through the rest of the papers. And Achimota School Delta outbreak, health service tackles a virus. We'll bring you some details of that. The international pages talk about Nigerian families, starting with page 5. Nigerian families struggle to survive as food prices soar. It talks about how the number of people living in poverty in Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation with 210 million inhabitants, was already among the highest in the world. Backed by inflation, Nigeria has been battered by the double economic effect of low global oil prices and the pandemic. The World Bank estimates the country's soaring inflation and food prices pushed another 7 million people into poverty in 2021. Nowhere cool like that. The other international page, page 9, military plane crash kills 45 in the Philippines. And then masks will become personal choice in the UK. And England is moving into a period without legal restrictions where the public will have to exercise personal responsibility, including on face masks, the housing secretary has said. Of course, in Ghana, with the outbreak of Delta and all of that, I do not know what our stance would be on that. As it is, we are supposed to wear the masks even after 2 shots of AstraZeneca. The middle page, or the middle spread of the Daily Graphic, noise pollution in Accra, and there's a lot of that, isn't there? On the back page, we have Faisal Stretch Kotoko in Obuase, which now means that, Asante Kotoko, after that, stalemate, now they have quite a hurdle to overcome. There's also Ghanaian wins Day for Wonders. That's it with the Daily Graphic newspaper. Quickly to the Ghanaian Times. COVID-19 Delta variant more deadly. 34 cases recorded so far. Catholic Bishops' Confab slams military brutalities, calls for independent probe. The middle spread talks about same, and on the back page, it's all about Legon Cities, Bechem United drawing and 11 Wonders stunning Oli in Accra. There's this interesting story in the BNFT that I'd quickly like to highlight. It talks about illegal and regulated sand winning in the Volta River and how it's soaring. So Ghanaians are fronting for Chinese. The Minerals Commission says no foreigner is permitted to win sand. It's that simple. No sand winning by a foreigner. And again, Ghana is losing or has lost some $6.3 billion annually to land degradation. So the question is, we've polluted all our water bodies. It was only over a month ago that I was in the eastern region, and you could see, the Volta River and all of that. We were even talking about how that was our only river basically left, pristine, Joseph. But here we are, and that is also being targeted for sand winning. I don't know what your thoughts are on it, Akable.
I think we have very well crafted laws that are generally geared at protecting the environment, and it's because of the impact that it has on all of us if our environment is destroyed. And so it's just been an enforcement challenge over the period, and that is what we'll continue to ask for. I think it's very disturbing, all forms of degradation, be it sand winning or be it mining that's not sustainable, that destroys the environment. So all those deforestation, among others, all those are matters that should be of great concern to us. And the expectation is that people we've entrusted state responsibility to protect us and the environment for that matter will take steps to ensure that that is done.
The Ghanaian publisher newspaper, and it regurgitates that issue you brought from the Finder. Ghana blows 1.9 billion Ghana cedis on judgment debts in 20 years. There's also Akufo-Addo, MPP and NDC mourn with Gabi Ochre Dako. The Custodian newspaper, Parliament's committee to probe WA military brutalities. And I felt a bit, sad when I heard the WANA, talking about the fact that asking the question of the military, is a mobile phone more important than the citizens of WA? That was the question posed to them. Then there's ex-IGP Apietu sues TV host Justice Annan for slander. And then there's Ghana loses 1.89 billion to judgment debt in 20 years. Republic Press now, it says NDC's Abuga Pele freed. And that one-time member of parliament for the Chianapaga constituency in the Upper East region and a former national coordinator of the now defunct Ghana Youth Employment and Entrepreneurial Development Agency, Abuga Pele, has reportedly been pardoned by President Akufo-Addo on health grounds. Just sharing with you some of what I've seen on social media. Others have also inquired, why not other people as well who have suffered similar fates, pointing to the fact that this could just be a political decision. But political or not, Abu Gapile, we all remember his story, and he, per what we are gathering, is going to be pardoned. Mahama joins bandwagon, slams Akufo-Addo for recent killings, and Domelevo back again, rehashes old script to indict Akufo-Addo. The final paper I shall do is the Economy Times. CD depreciation slows for first half of 2021. So, Joseph, let's get into the three papers you have. I know you have the Daily Dispatch, the Daily Guide, and the Finder. Let's pick out the salient stories from there that you'd like to highlight, Joseph.
I mean, I think there's this story from the Daily Guide that I find quite interesting. It's about the PDS issue, because we've not heard much about the court case so far. We are learning from the Guide this morning that the court has thrown out the action by the PDS against government. And portions of the story reads that the Commercial Division of the High Court, presided over by her leadership, Justice Equia Sapoma Amwa, has the ruling dated Friday, 2nd July 2021, dismissed an application for judicial review filed by Power Distribution Service against the Attorney General following the cancellation of the PDS operating licenses issued by the Energy Commission. And so they were asking for a number of reliefs, including asking the court to set aside government's decision to terminate the agreement. And now we are being told that the court has ruled in favor of government, holding that government was justified in terminating it. And so the full reasons we are told to be filed at the registry of the courts, and so we don't know the specific details, but the conclusion is what has been reported. And I think it's some good news now, particularly because of the recent controversy. You recall, during the vetting of the deputy minister designate, there's some amount of money belonging to the state that is in the coffers of PDS that PDS has refused to make available to the state because they said there's a pending case. And so they will refuse to release the money. And the minister had actually indicated that it's because of the pending court case. Now that this is out of the way, hopefully the state can go after and take that money, because it's money that we have all paid by way of our bills to PDS, which is supposed to belong to the states.
Well, interesting, story there as far as that is concerned. It's a matter that the minority has also raised, and finally we're getting at least some closure to the matter. And accessing those funds would also mean we can do quite a lot with it, having it in the kitty, the state's kitty. But any other stories you'd like to highlight from the Daily Guide?
There are a couple of others. I mean, there's this COVID situation too. Is also something that is very worrying. And according to the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, we are recording a lot of cases in the schools particularly, and that is of concern. And we now know of the Achimota situation where the Delta variant is within a population. I guess the lesson and advice that we'll keep pushing across is that we should all stick to the protocols when you are moving into public places. You should wear your mask, you should continue with the hand washing and the use of the sanitizer as well. And I listened to Dr. Kumabwadi yesterday. He said earlier we're recording about 30 cases per day. We are now doing around 80 cases. And the context again is that not a lot of the population has been vaccinated, aside from the obvious facts that science teaches us that our vaccines are not as effective as others in terms of this new strain that is very deadly and causes a lot of harm. And so we all need to be very careful and stick to the protocols. That's the surest way we are told of limiting the spread of the virus.
Right. And of course, that's also on the back of the fact that we have some 2,127 students in some 351 schools across the country who have contracted the virus. And then we have that toll when it comes to the Delta variant of the virus, 34 extant. For me, Akable, it's a bit of a concern because in April, it was at KIA. Then in July, the 1st, we found it in, the community. And now only God knows what the spread rate could be. For now, Delta isn't the biggest in terms of numbers. Alpha, the UK variant, still is. But for me, I'm just praying because of how contagious it is, its level of transmissibility, and the effect when you're hospitalized. Thankfully, a lot of those who got it, at least in Achimota, were asymptomatic. So we just thank God for that.
But the fear now is because, Achimota, they are day students, they are boarders. And so
the movement,
the Ghana Health Service, exactly. The Ghana Health Service says what they are trying to do is to test the day students, contact trace, and get to their homes. So you can imagine how the chain works.
Yeah.
The students will go home, they'll go and buy beans from behind the house, they'll go and buy Omo or So Clean or whatever washing detergent for their family
I
members.
can't believe, why beans? Why go straight to government this morning? Is that your favorite?
It's early morning, I'm hungry.
I see. But very important point you're making, the movement and all of that. Contact tracing is going to be a nightmare.
Exactly. And the best the state can do at this stage is to follow to some extent. I mean, we can't follow to the logical conclusion. The best they can do is to get to the homes, test those in the homes there, make sure everyone is fine. Just at those levels. Because going all the way, that is why the best advice really, if you've you've been vaccinated, I mean, it makes sense that you wear your mask because you can imagine that you have and the thing about the virus that is very confusing is that there are people who have the virus, no symptoms, they are not sick, they infect you and you become sick and you may even die as a result of that. And so it's a collective responsibility. For once, my life depends directly on you and your life depends directly on me.
You see why I'm always masked up, even after two shots of AstraZeneca. So it may not even be to protect myself, but to protect others. But there's a story that I like us to get into. We've all been through the tertiary system in this country, and it's on page 16 of the Daily Graphic. Katanga Unity Halls clash over SRC vetting. And we're told students of the University Hall, popularly called Katanga, and their counterparts of Unity Hall Kunti of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in the early hours of yesterday clashed at the vetting of candidates for the Students' Representative Council. Let me quickly skip to the causes. The two halls are considered traditional rivals on the campus, and according to sources, the clash, which occurred around 2:45 a.m., resulted from a misunderstanding between supporters of two candidates vying for the SRC presidency. The source said the confusion broke out when a member of the campaign team of the Kunti Hall candidate tried to prevent supporters of the candidate from the Katanga Hall from entering the hall. But how would I even refer to them? We tend to use skirmishes a lot. This sort of infighting in our institutions. You can talk about the University of Ghana, my alma mater. You can talk about the Kwame Nkrumah University. You can talk about Cape Coast. All of them. I don't get it. It appears it's ever so common, and whenever it happens, it leaves destruction in its wake. I don't know what you think we can do to stem the tide of these happenings.
It's worrying, and I mean the thing. It's elections. I'm always very concerned when elections results in violence. I mean, because the universities are supposed to be quite an enlightened society, and what we preach always is that no matter what the disagreements are, we should be able to use dialogue to resolve them. And so when you have quite an enlightened society that is supposed to know better, some of these things happening, it's very worrying. And I've seen a statement from the management of the university indicating that a committee will be set up to thoroughly investigate this matter. KNUST, I remember not too long ago, they were in the news when the students went on rampage and destroyed all sorts of things. The government had to come in and dissolve the council and all those issues that came up there. Violence of all forms are not good. And I always, like psychologists teach, the best way of dealing with it is always punishing people who engage in it. At least it will
just set some example.
Deter some of them. Exactly. So change them and also deter others from engaging in that. But it's not very good since at all. I've seen videos from, I mean, it was a mess at the Great Hall. They were just throwing chairs across. This is SRC elections, Ben.
Well, I mean, if we do these at SRC elections, should we be surprised when in our national elections such things happen? And maybe we might need some, I don't know, but draw some linkages between what happens on the national level and what happens in a microcosm of, let's say, a public university, because you would see linkages. It's either those students are learning the example of our political leaders or vice versa. Whichever way it is, it's a reflection from both ends. But let's quickly take a look at some judgment debt bits. You spoke of that when you read from the Finder newspaper. 1.9 billion Ghana City judgment debts paid in 20 years. And every government since 2000 has caused judgment debts, according to a report. The latest we have on our hands, that to do with the excavators, and that's another gargantuan sum if it is actually, if it goes through. So I don't know. What is your take on that? Would you like to highlight that story, Joseph?
I mean, it's we are told that the amount is also it's 112% of the total central government grants received in 2019. I mean, it's a lot of money that is going down the drain, and it's always as a result of the actions and inactions of people entrusted. Public office is a very serious issue. We all can't do something, so we've decided that we are going to let you do it for us.
Right.
And we try to provide specs just to make you comfortable. So we are fuel in your car, we are giving you tax exemptions, we are giving you loans, you are paid well, all those things, just to ensure that you protect the interest of all of us. I mean, I think the conversation needs to go a step further to people who cause financial loss to the state. What actions are we taking against them? Because pick the excavators, for instance. These are the interministerial task force, people who were employed by the state, who decided to unlawfully. What analysis did they do to conclude that we can seize this excavator? Worst of all, they sold the excavator contrary to law.
Yeah.
Even though the lay-down procedure is clear. And so we see a public officer who wrongly concluded that the company was engaged in illegal mining, who again wrongly concluded that he had the right to sell the excavator. How exactly does this become a burden on the state? It can't be a burden on the state. We have to go after these individuals, and until we do that,
but you also agree. I mean, vicarious responsibility or vicarious liability in law, but in this stance, maybe more aligned because these individuals were acting on behalf of a certain state. They were not acting on their own.
At all levels, from the government level, the minister responsible, those who give the instructions, from all those levels up to the bottom. So it should be such that it should, unless you show us practical steps that you took in your best interest, seized with the facts to ensure that it doesn't result in that situation, we need to go after you. Because, and to be clear, Ben, someone said some time ago that I work like a bull to pay my taxes. It is those taxes that we are going to be used to pay for those judgment debts.
Yeah. Well, on that bit, just to break down a few more of what the Finder newspaper says, it says 1.3 billion of the 1.9 plus billion resulted from contract breaches, 479.2 million from compensation of compulsory land acquisition, 29.9 million from statutory breaches by public officials, like you're just mentioning. And this represents 135% of multilateral loans in 2019. So you see the real impact of this. It represents 112% of grants received in 2019, and finally constitutes 30% of health expenditure in 2019. That's the impact. Anyway, so that's it for the Finder newspaper and that story. But in a related event, especially as you are speaking, Joseph Akable, of the roles of public officials, we saw what happened in Parliament when the 7th Parliament was giving way to the 8th Parliament and the invasion of the House by military officers. We've seen what has happened in Wa, and before Wa, we saw what happened in Ejura. And the Ashanti Regional Minister, according to the Ghanaian Times newspaper on page 3, says, I ordered military to go to Ejura to restore calm. The story basically saying that Simon Osei-Mensah, Ashanti Regional Minister, has defended the use of force by the police and military during the protest by the youth in Ejura. And following his burial, the burial of Kaka, the youth in the town embarked on a demonstration and was met by shooting from the military. Now, this is what the minister says. I did, yes. I requested for their support as chairman of the Regional Security Council. He is talking of the military, and he says, I got an intelligence report that after the burial of Kaka, they were going to burn the police station, including the 2 persons who were arrested. That won't help us. That is his, well, what he says warranted this action. Your take, Akable?
I mean, I think it's fine to deploy the men. I mean, the problem really is what the men went to do. And that is what is contrary to any proper policing methods that we all know. I mean, no one cares whether you deploy the Navy or whoever to contain whatever situation that we have to deal with. If they have to just be responsible, you fire warning shots. I mean, I saw a video from Sunyani, the Coronation Park. There was a bit of a chaos. I think it's a match between RTU and one team from there. the Sunyani area, and the referee was beaten up and everything. But the video that I saw is a police vehicle that was leading the RTU bus out of the stadium.
Right.
And it clearly showed how they control the crowd. I mean, they were just firing warning shots up into the air while they drove out, just firing. So people were moving back. Then they led the bus out of it. I mean, people are protesting. The thing that about protests that people need to understand is that it's people's passions. Like, they are incensed about something, they are upset, they are angry that someone has died. Those things, you can't control them, and it doesn't make any sense to just shoot at them. And we captured videos, people on video bending down, a soldier bending down on one knee and firing into a crowd, not upwards. And so I think, and I'm not too sure about the sort of assessment. Again, there's the argument that we should move from military to proper policing, in the sense that a lot of states are focusing more on equipping their police to be capable of dealing with every situation and going down on the military.
Right.
So, but our situation is where the military they have a lot of firepower, they are better equipped, and that's how come we easily call them when there's any little disagreement or disturbance.
Well, that in itself is very problematic. We've reduced our numbers when it comes to the police to citizen ratio, I think, from 800 to 500 now. I don't know. We've not hit 500 yet. It was 1,200. We brought it down to 800. But I still feel, and it's been reflected by some security analysts, that we tend to involve the military far too often. And even corroborated by Brigadier General Nunu Mensah, retired, who recently said that the military, their focus is different. When they go out there into a crowd, they are not looking at too much of crowd control and all of that. That's not what they are trained for. They are trained to do maximal damage. So aren't we even, I mean, doing the wrong thing, putting the military out there? Like you're rightly stating, other countries focus on the police. So the right things ought to be done. But I think this is a conversation we shall keep on having as time goes on. But Joseph, thank you so much for joining the conversation. It's been refreshing.
Thank you, Ben.
Good. So this is where we wrap. If we have enough time, we can take a look at myjoyonline.com. If not, you can just pass through myjoyonline.com. The major stories in Ghana and beyond are there. And we'll just check out a few stories from myjoyonline.com. So it says, man beheaded at Feyiase in Ashanti region. Then there's Delta variant dominant in fresh 135 COVID-19 cases at Achimota school. And there's more. You can actually check out those details on myjoyonline.com. Coming up next, though, we have sporting action for you with Muftau Nabila. Do stay.
The shots gone by are not a scene of a war zone. The shots gone by were fans agitating about decisions of a referee. It is a post-Division 1 league match that happened in Zone 3 when league leaders RTU traveled to BA to come up against BA United. The referee, Maxwell Hansen, awarded a penalty to RTU, and fans got very angry and took it to the extreme by burning ties on the roads, and the police officers had to fire gunshots to disperse these people. What is happening to Ghana football is a major question everyone has been asking on social media since the images emerged. Also in the Ghana Premier League, Asante Kotoko and Hasafok all dropped points. But as it stands now, Hasafok is just a win away from winning the Premier League for the first time in 11 years. And also, the weekend was also designated into awarding some of the best talents in Ghana football and those who have contributed massively to the growth of the game in the country. I am Muftau Nabila Ablai, and this is AM Sports on the AM Show. Let's start with the decision of the Ghana Football Awards group to award some of the best players in the country. And Black Stars captain Andre Ayew, he has been voted the Footballer of the Year at the 3rd edition of the Ghana Football Awards. Ayew becomes the first player to clinch the topmost prize after Thomas Partey won it back-to-back in 2018 and 2019, beating off competition from Ajax's Kudus Mohamed and Great Olympics Glasson Awako. Joy Sports' Haruna Mubarak was there and filed this report.
Footballer of the Year is Andre Ayew.
Ladies
The biggest prize on the night, though announced at the last part of the event, went to the Black Stars captain. Ayew was instrumental as Swansea City reached the championship playoff final, scoring 17 goals in the process. The former Swansea man led the senior national team to secure qualification to the next edition of the African Cup of Nations, contributing 2 goals in 4 matches. His performances in the year under review earned him the award.
You know, it's been a difficult season, not just football-wise, but in the world with this COVID-19, etc. So being able to stay strong mentally and do what I had to do on the field today, getting this is a good sign of hard work, and I need to continue because there is much more to do.
Speaking to the media, the 31-year-old has been explaining the essence of the recognition handed him.
Well, it means that, you know, I can't hide behind the fact that the nation and my colleagues and the Ghana football fans, you know, have a lot of hopes in me and believe a lot in me to do something to make sure we qualify for the World Cup and try and bring a trophy home. I can't hide from that, so I'm taking it with a lot of humbleness and a lot of responsibilities, but I believe that I've grown enough in the game to take that weight, and I'm going to keep working hard and make sure that I make the nation proud.
Aside from Ayew's prize, Hearts of Oak, who are gunning to win the league title for the first time in 11 years, were the biggest winners on the night. The Phobians were voted as the male team of the year. Head coach Samuel Boadu was named coach of the year, and the home-based player of the year saw their talisman Salifu Ibrahim beat Asante Kotoko's Fabio Gama and Wafes Augustin Boache. Chief Executive Officer of Asante Kotoko, Nana Yawan Ponsa, was crowned the CEO of the year, while King Faisal goalkeeper Ibrahim Danlad, on loan from Kotoko, got the better of Razak Abalora and Richard Ofori for the Goalkeeper of the Year award. AFCON Under-20 Golden Ball winner Abdul Fattah Isahaku received the Odate Lamte Future Star Award. In other categories, Mercy Tego was crowned Female Coach of the Year, while Hazakes Ladies, who won the Women's League and FA Cup, received the Female Team of the Year award. Other Africans plying their trade abroad were honored. In its maiden introduction into the scheme, Chelsea goalkeeper Edward Mendy was adjudged the best African international. He kept 11 clean sheets in 12 Champions League games, and Chelsea won the competition. Other contenders were Manchester City's Riyad Mahrez and Frank Kessie of AC Milan. The Ghana Football Awards event did not fall short of entertainment.
General was once a Coast team player. This is a serious thing. He almost got into the national team, but General, can you tell us why you couldn't make it to the national team?
Oh, I almost got to the national team, but I went to head the ball that I was not supposed to head. It was a free kick, and the ball was coming. And then as a defender, bang! Immediately I started hearing noise in my head.
Sounds of your times.
I heard the voice of Shabokwe. Say, General, man heard the boss, I'll be.
It was a night to celebrate outstanding footballers among their peers, but those who laid a path and contributed immensely to the game and have passed on to eternity were recognized as well. Haruna Mubarak for Joy Sports.
And now, 10 years ago, Uruguay forward Luis Suarez used his hands to punch a ball out of a goal-bound header from Dominic Adia in the quarter-final of the FIFA World Cup. An eventual penalty handed Ghana was missed by Asamoah Gyan. The Black Stars eventually lost a penalty shootout, missing out on the opportunity of securing a semi-final ticket. Former Black Stars keeper Stephen Appiah says that incident will continue to haunt him for the rest of his life.
Stephen, tell me about this moment again.
I think it's better not to say anything. As I saw the picture on the screen, you can see that my voice has changed. These are the things that is going to haunt some of us for the rest of our lives, because we had a chance to go to the semi-finals to make history. The first African country to go to the semi-finals, and it couldn't happen. So, I mean, some of us, we have to live with it.
But year in, year out, this picture pops up on social media. People talk about it and everything. I mean, I know it's difficult, but Give us the level of difficulty, I mean, for you. I mean, anytime, sometimes when you're alone and you have to think about this.
Well, that's why I said that, I mean, he's going to haunt us for the rest of our lives because it was the first World Cup held in Africa. It went so well. Before the World Cup, people were talking about the World Cup that is not going to be successful in Africa. But I mean, South Africa, they hosted the World Cup very, very well. We were happy, and we were the only African country who got to the quarterfinals, and we wanted to, we wanted to make history, and the support. I quite remember when we played at the Soccer City, 80,000. I mean, everybody was supporting us. The world was supporting us because of our performance, and we had a chance to go to the semi-finals. But I mean, we couldn't.
Bagana, eh? Hey.
That is Stephen Appiah on his pandemic duties, recollecting those memories at the Soccer City Stadium when they missed out on opportunity of securing a semi-final ticket in the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Now let's go now to Zoom and speak to the Communications Director of Legon Cities, Kwame Jumo. You would recall that on May 12, we had reported that Legon Cities were in the market to secure the services of Maxwell Konedu as their new head coach. Yesterday, they officially confirmed that they've beefed up their technical team with the appointment of Maxwell Konedu, and Communications Director of the club, Kwame Juma, is joining us this morning to give us details and why they've decided to go for Maxwell Konedu when they already have Bashiru Hayford at post. Kwame, good morning. Thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning, Fatal.
Muftao, rather.
Muftao, rather. Forgive me, sorry.
Yeah. Thanks very much for joining us. Kwame, a quick one. What influenced the decision to hire Maxwell?
Well, we found ourselves in a situation, and with Maxwell being available, we thought that getting him to augment the squad was going to help us. So we decided to speak.
He was also contacted by Enyimba FC before Legon Cities pulled it through. Now let's do some Ghana Premier League stories where Hearts of Oak left it late at the Cape Coast Sports Stadium as Kojo Obin Jr. equalized for the Phobians with a minute left to play. Obin Jr.'s one-time volley crept into the net after a long pass from Fatah Mohamed. The draw means Samuel Bodu's men just need 3 more points from their last 2 games to win the league title. Hearts of Oak, they drew their game, and prior to their game, Asante Kotoko had to come up against King Faisal. They had a plethora of opportunities of beating the Porcupine Warriors, but unfortunately, Asante Kotoko also left it late to pull parity as that game also ended 1-1.
Lovely stop from Kwame Pepra. Now he's up against Apeo. The Faisal captain cuts back. He goes down. Earlier incidents where the appeals for the penalty is very powerful roundabout, but Kwame Pepra wants to check the ball back there. Appeal, look at the hand across the chest. It's a penalty all day long. Wadudu's ball for Pepra. Can he get a second run? Kwame Ba! How? The woodwork to make the save this time, but that was a glorious opportunity here. But take a look at the movement of Kwame Pepra and the pass from Wadudu. Brilliant movement in behind Appeal. That's everything right here with the first touch, but just there, at the time he's trying to take the effort, there's a little bit of a bounce before he takes the effort. The ball goes straight into the woodwork. So unlucky, Kwame Pepra. But take a look at this, just that bounce there. Imoro's delivery. Danlad fails to save, and that's the equalizer. Kumasi Asante Kotoko. Says from Kim Faisal. So that's the delivery from Imoro. Yeah, that's the ball that comes into the box here. But it's an interesting one. They're calling for a foul. The ball gets in behind Danlad. That is a header that goes into the back of the net. Danlad fails to make the catch. Yeah, he does fail to make the catch, and this time he doesn't get his judgment right.
Between the 14th and the 16th of June 2021, 3 students presented to the Achimota school sick bay with an influenza-like symptom like cough and fever, among others. All 3 were investigated for COVID-19 in line with the laid-down protocols. The 3 tested positive, prompting the activation of the Public Health Emergency Response Team of the Greater Accra region, and led by the Okaikwe North Municipality where the school falls. All 3 students were isolated following existing protocols. Other symptomatic students, which are contacts, were identified and listed and also tested for COVID-19. And all the contacts before doing testing was put under mandatory quarantine until the results came. So far, as at the 3rd of July, because of an enhanced approach to trying to contain the situation, we've done about 843 students and staff have been sampled. 348 of them are boarding students, 459 are day students, 36 of them are teaching and non-teaching staff have been tested. We have received results for about 550 samples out of the 843 samples. In fact, yesterday, over 250 samples were taken. And so those are the results we are waiting. I'm sure by the end of the day, the results will be in and be able to come up more clearly. So far, of the 550, 135 tested positive. All the 135 cases at the time of diagnosis were either asymptomatic or had very mild to moderate illness. 1 staff was also recorded positive, and about 2 tests, that's about 89 students and staff have recovered, accounting for 65.5% so far. So the active case, the number who are still carrying the virus, about 46, as I mentioned earlier. We had a significant number of the initial one we did in Achimota as the Delta variant. These things came about because at the initial assessment by the health sector, realized that the adherence to the protocol was significantly low, and so a lot had to be done to look at that. So what the measures are ongoing now, for which the Director General Education will also add, is to the health education on all public requests has been intensified for both day and day students, and then the students and the teachers. We review the cases daily, and discharge of eligible students are being done based on our discharge policy. That's 14 weeks, 14 days from the day we tested positive. We have intensified enforcement of the infection prevention and control practices on campus, and disinfection of all places of concern are being done. Classrooms, vehicles, etc., are all being done currently. We've also had to do some strategic testing of all these students to identify and contain the community spread, because Achimota overall has about over 800 day students who commute daily. For the current situation, about 500 students are day, and so if there's an outbreak there and they are going home and they are coming back, it's a group of concern to contain community spread, and that is why we've had to test all day students.
And that was the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje, sharing thoughts there. Let's quickly connect now as we speak on government's work to mitigate the spread of the Delta variant of COVID-19 as we discourse with Dr. Yao Bediako. He's an immunologist with a WACBIP. Doc, thank you for joining the conversation. Now, this morning, I want us to start from April when we first got wind of the virus being present, or the Delta strain being present at KIA, then July the 1st when we heard of some spreading. Now we know that the Delta variant has spread across 98 countries, but here in Ghana, we have the Greater Accra and Ashanti regions. So far, with what you've seen, any surprises in there in how this virus seems to be spreading and how we're dealing with it?
Good morning, Benjamin. Thank you for having me. No, there's no surprise. I mean, this is what we predict. We've been predicting for the last few weeks based on what we had observed or what had happened in other countries around the world with regards to Delta. It's the most highly transmissible variant that has emerged so far. And if back to December and January when the Alpha variant, otherwise known as the UK variant, emerged, it started in the same way. It began in Greater Accra and Ashanti. Those are our main sort of hotspots typically. and then began to spread to a point where nearly all the samples we sequenced were alpha. Delta is much more transmissible even than alpha, and so it remains to be seen how it would spread. But we are expecting that now that it's in the community, we are likely only seeing a tip of the iceberg. We have to remember that our sequencing throughput is still very low, so we are not sequencing every positive sample that is detected. And our testing, I mean, I know that now with the Achimota outbreak, the Ghana Health Service has begun to institute a bit more mass testing in that school. But it is possible that there are a large number of asymptomatic infections that are in other places that we are simply just not testing, or even if we are testing and finding positive, we are not sequencing. So, the fact that you detected it, and now it's relatively easy to detect Delta, suggests that the prevalence of the Delta variant in Ghana is already relatively high and is growing.
Now, I find this interesting because a little while after the outbreak of COVID-19, I remember from last year, there was a random check and some people in the Achimota hospital area turned out, quite a number of them from taxi drivers and all of that. In this case, it is some students who have tested positive. Out of the 34 we know who have Delta, we have some of the students from Achimota as well. And some have spoken about the protocols being breached in the school. Putting that side by side with what Dr. Patrick Umawaji has been saying about stricter enforcement, what would you say we ought to be seeing in Achimota school, but generally across the schools? Because again, over 1,000 of these cases in our educational facilities. How do we go about it?
I mean, I've always been one to say that the schools are a microcosm of what's happening in the society. You cannot single out the students for non-adherence. Non-adherence to protocols is rampant across this country, from schools to offices to public transport to social gatherings. I mean, we just finished a weekend. Anybody listening can ask themselves if they went to a wedding or a funeral, were the protocols really being observed strictly? I suspect if we are honest, the answer is a resounding no. So the bottom line is, and I believe that Dr. Abwaji and Dr. Thierry Bakwing, the Director of Public Health and Ghana Health Service, have said this repeatedly. Adherence has declined. I mean, we have become complacent. If you have to sit in traffic this morning and just count how many masks you will see, I suspect that you will see fewer masks than you saw in January or February. So adherence is much lower. We have, the gatherings, the super spreader, the opportunity for super spreader events are very, very high because we've gone back to having gatherings that breach the protocol. And so we cannot just label the schools. Of course, schools are unique in the sense that you have, young people close together in boarding school or even day students in classrooms. There's a high risk for transmission in schools. Up to this point, SARS-CoV-2 has been relatively mild in young people. However, with Delta, we have seen a little bit of a shift. So it is concerning. It may be the case that Achimota is not isolated. As I said, if you went to randomly sample students in other schools, you may find a similar situation. So it should be a warning that Delta is now in Ghana. There was debate in the beginning whether it was at the airport or in the community. Now there is no doubt. I believe in the coming days there will be more numbers released that demonstrating more people testing positive for the variant. So we have to revert back to what we were doing in January and February. We have to revert back to that level of alert.
And I can corroborate what you're saying. I have attended events and had to prompt people that I felt should know better to use their masks, but even people who have not been vaccinated would act as though they were safe, and we've seen this recurring. So generally, from schools to all across different facets of our society, we are letting our guards down. That's the reality.
Yes, I mean, I think you don't have to be, I mean, it's very obvious that we have let our guards down. It's unfortunate because, when that happens against a virus like this, when our vaccination rate remains so low, that puts people's lives at risk.
Now, I just want you to break down the Delta strain of the virus for us, because we've heard of all of them, from the Alpha, in the UK, Gamma in Brazil, Beta South Africa, and now Delta, from India, supposedly. What is it that makes this virus so deadly? Yes, we've heard about, the hospitalization. We've heard about the level of transmissibility. But break it down for us. Why is this virus so bad for us? And why should we really ramp it up when it comes to the protocols to be observed?
Okay, well, I mean, different variants of, as we said before, different variants of the virus emerge due to mutation. And that is a natural process in any viral outbreak. Delta, as you said, otherwise known as B617.2, is a variant that was first reported in India. And I'm about how COVID, what happened in India and what continues to happen in India with the size of the outbreak they encountered. And that is largely credited to Delta. Up until then, India had, of course, had cases, but nothing on the scale of what they saw. The variant of the Delta variant is able to transmit from person to person much more easily because it carries the mutation in the receptor region that appears to make it more transmissible. But then it also appears to be able to evade our body's immune responses better than the other variants. So it sort of combines the transmissibility of the UK variant with the immune evasiveness of what we call of the South African variant. And just to give an example, the Alpha variant, the UK variant, which was the most transmissible before the emergence of Delta, its reproductive number is between 2 to 4, which means for every one case, that person potentially will infect 2 to 4 other people. With Delta, it's 5 to 8, which means a single person can infect up to 5 to 8 people. So that automatically, I think that should be clear to everybody how transmissible this variant is and how potentially deadly it could be.
Right. Please hold for me, Dr. Bediako. We've also been joined by Professor Alfred Yorson, Head of Community Health with the University of Ghana Medical School. Prof, thank you for joining the conversation. Now, so far, with all that you've seen, the outbreak of the Delta variant in the Greater Accra, in the Ashanti regions, the 34 cases we've seen so far, the spike in schools, and government's attempts with the Ghana Health Service to deal with the problem. What would you say is your understanding of what we've done so far? Are we making positive strides as far as curtailing the virus is concerned?
Thank you very much for having me. It's always good to be here. Yes, we indeed must really put our act together, as Dr. Bediako said. We have had episodes of this pandemic as if everything is all right, and then suddenly we are in difficult streets again. And unfortunately, for the past few weeks, even at the national level, community level, and institutional level, their preventive measures were almost non-existent. Hand washing is almost history. And then a few places you see disinfection of hand using sanitizers. And as for wearing of masks, you don't see it. And these are the things that will undo all the efforts that we have made. And it is important at this stage, as Dr. Bediako said again, that we are dealing with a variant that is more easily transmissible. And therefore, if we don't put these measures back in place as we were doing, then we're going to have spikes. And this I will call unwarranted. It's something that we expected because it was happening elsewhere. And as we always say, it will come back to you eventually. So if you don't put your house in order, then you bear the brunt of whatever it brings along. And I think it is high time we took the bold measures and come out again, see leadership in this regard, that put in all the legislative measures that we used to have, get the security people back onto the game, and then we move from here. Otherwise, we are just playing, as I would call it, we are playing with fire. So far, what we have seen, and then all the cases slowing down over the month, it's not necessarily due to the vaccination, because if you look at the proportion of the population that have been vaccinated, it's still very low. It means some other measures were going for us, and these are the measures we need to continue to take. So if we relax, and then in enclosed places like schools, like prisons, like such areas, if we get the variant there, then it will spread quite fast. And then, because it also causes severe illness, we may be overwhelmed with our capacity to deal with critically ill and severely ill persons. So we really need to put our act together, tackle it, the same measures we took in the early days of the pandemic, as if this is a new pandemic. That is what I would want to say. We need to tackle it with all the seriousness that it deserves.
Talking about tackling it with all the seriousness it deserves, I don't know what the extent is. Dr. Patrick Kumar-Baji has said we need stricter measures in place to deal with it, and especially as you are more focused on community health, what do you feel we should be doing as far as the community spread of the variant is concerned? How do we take the bull by the horns in this instance? Is it just going to be the normal, oh, don your mask, sanitize, wash your hands, or should we need, do we need accelerated measures to be able to curb it?
Yes, as you rightly put it, we need accelerated measures. We have done these in the past, but this is the time we need to step up. If it is public education, we need to step up. If it is the legislation, as we said, we need to take stricter measures, and we see examples being made of people who are flouting the laws, and also put in place more friendlier and more enforceable regimes of the rules, so that people will be made to do the right things. It's not only punishment and sanctions. We should put in measures to encourage people to do the right thing. For example, as we always say, this is the time that we need to ensure certain public measures. You see people who are not wearing masks, you put in sanctions, you get them to do some community work, and you provide them with masks, so that it is not just the prevention and the sanctioning, but also the protection aspect of it should be enforced. We make sure we get everybody to get masks. In our marketplaces, at the community level, at the school, we always must get the community leaders on board. There was a time we had prominent chiefs, prominent leaders talking about it. This is the time we need that effort again. We need to show that example at the community level.
Let me go back to Dr. Bediako, and I'll come to you, Prof, on that self-same matter. Doc, we see that in our educational institutions, citing Achimota, for example, out of the 550 that were tested, about 135 students turning out positive. Of course, we have that staff member as well who was also positive. You look at the numbers and you realize there's an uptick from what we were experiencing, you know, a short while ago compared to now, and Delta is also in there. Could this break the backbone of our health system if not addressed properly? What could be the consequences of having the Delta variant, especially in these two hotbeds, the Greater Accra region, the Ashanti region, if care is not taken? Dr. Bediako, are you on the line with us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So in summary, what I'm saying is, looking at our health system and the uptick when it comes to the Delta variant and other variants in the country, could this, if not handled properly, break the backbone of our health system? What do you foresee?
I mean, I think SARS-CoV-2, the concern has always been that if the pandemic got out of hand locally, that it would overwhelm the health system. That has happened in India, it's happened in Uganda, it's happened in many places. That we saw it in Europe early on in the pandemic last year. So that is always the risk that this virus poses. So far, we have been fortunate, but we need to remain vigilant. The Delta variant presents, I think, a threat like we haven't seen yet with this virus, based on what it has done in other countries. So no one can predict for sure, but certainly, if numbers were to grow to a point that our hospitals were now getting full of hospitalized people, that would present a very serious situation. So we don't want to find out. I mean, with this, you don't want to wait and find out and then say, oh, we should have known better. We need to be proactive, because once it begins to spiral out of control, there's really very little that we can.
There's little we can do. I was just saying that on the back of what other countries, India especially, and of course, those 98 other countries are facing in terms of dealing with the Delta variant. But out of curiosity, Doc, is that to say, scientifically speaking, that these mutations, these variants, now we have so many of them, hundreds of them, that we are going to continue having these mutations and these different variants of SARS-CoV-2 until maybe we eradicate it? I mean, what is the science behind it? Are we just going to continue being on this path and then treating one variant after another?
Yes. So we vaccinate enough people to, like you said, eliminate or at least really significantly slow down the spread of the virus. That is what's going to happen. And so we have, many of us have been saying that the longer you have circulating virus, every time the virus circulates from a person to another person, it has the opportunity to mutate. And so you have the opportunity for a new variant to emerge. Every once in a while, those variants are variants of concern, as we are seeing with Delta. Many variants don't behave that differently from what we had originally, and so they don't get designated that. But yeah, this is why vaccination is so key. This is why, the African continent cannot become the last place that COVID exists, because otherwise we will be dealing with this indefinitely. It'll keep circulating. So we have to vaccinate. We have to, in the meantime, as we try to get more vaccines, we have to observe the protocols to basically try to slow the spread. But it is a long fight. Without mass vaccination, without herd immunity, I don't really see this ending soon. So that really, the countries where you are seeing the outbreak under control are countries that have done a lot of vaccination. So that remains our target. It has to remain our focus. But in the meantime, as we are still dealing with it, we have to maintain the protocol, try to prevent too many people from getting infected.
Let me push that question a bit further. We know that with some illnesses treated with antibiotics, for example, over time, the viruses or bacteria have developed resistance to those antibiotics, so much so that we've had to develop newer ones to deal with them because the older ones no longer worked, or for some of them are practically, you would say, incurable. You have to deal with them. In this instance, we have this variant, which seems to even be difficult for the vaccine shots we've taken, AstraZeneca and Sputnik, in other countries, to deal with. Could we get to the point where, even if we have medication for it, we need to keep developing newer versions, and even if we've taken vaccines, we might need to keep updating those vaccines in order to deal with these mutations of COVID?
Well, I mean, we have to distinguish treatment from vaccines. First of all, antibiotics only work on bacteria; they don't work on viruses.
Right.
And yes, vaccines work a little bit different. The pathogens typically don't develop resistance against the vaccine, although they can mutate and the vaccines can become less effective. So there is that possibility. It's not so much as a result of overuse of the vaccine. It's just that if the pandemic continues, where we keep getting new and new variants, eventually variants may emerge that would not be recognized by the antibodies elicited by the vaccines we are using. So, of course, yes, it's a risk. That's why many of us have been saying we need to vaccinate quickly to try to get, basically put your foot on the neck of the pandemic and try to squeeze the life out of it before a variant, the vaccine, potentially less effective. So that is a risk. It may get to a point where you may require boosters. But what we are seeing around the world is that currently all the vaccines available, yes, they have some variants in efficacy, but all of them are highly effective against preventing severe disease and death, which ultimately is what you're trying to prevent at the basic level. So, vaccination still remains very effective against this. if we can get, a high level of vaccination, we will likely prevent people from getting sick. If you look at the UK, right now their cases are rising because of Delta, but their hospitalizations and deaths are still going down. That is because so many people are vaccinated that even when people get positive, nothing really happens. So that's where we still need to push towards that direction. If at some point we need to give booster shots, then so be it. But right now, 1% of Ghana's population is fully vaccinated. We have, we have almost 20 million more people to go before we can take herd immunity. So, we should worry about what we can worry about right now, and that is we need to get everybody at least fully vaccinated, and then proceed from there.
Dr. Bediako, we are very grateful for your time with us this morning, and do have a wonderful day. Thank you for engaging us. Dr. Yaw Bediako is an immunologist with WACBIP of the University of Ghana. Professor Alfred Yawson is still with us. Prof, so on that same beat, that initial question I posed to Dr. Bediako concerning community spread and how to deal with it to forestall a health crisis in our country. What would be your take? Could this cripple our health system, and what should we do essentially to avert that?
Yes, for now, again, the backbone of the fight will be all the preventive measures we've put in place. And no matter the variant, as I always jokingly say, even if it's Zeta, we still will need to take all the preventive measures. That's the only means of doing that. So that's one, that's very important. And then also effort to get a high percentage of the population vaccinated. That was the initial plan. Unfortunately, the world political economy and so many other factors have mitigated against this plan. Yet, all effort is being made to get vaccines in country. We have capacity to vaccinate our people. Once we get these vaccines, yes. So for now, once we are waiting, we need to continue encouraging members, wherever you are, to continue to provide yourself the personal protection that you require and also protect others. What we have done well as a country is the plan to vaccinate our health workers. That in itself, even though the percentage is small, provides a certain confidence and make our health system a little more resilient so that we know our health workers are protected, and therefore the collateral effect, not conducting surgeries, not treating other patients because of the effect COVID will have on us, is now limited. And that's where we have done well, and we need to continue that. And we need to engage the public to help us so that the health workers will not be overwhelmed. The health system will not be overwhelmed. And then we become short of oxygen and admissions. That's where we don't want to get to. We want to keep it as we have always done. If the cases rise moderately, we are always able to cope and deal with. But if it rises exponentially, then it becomes challenging. So we will encourage everyone whose responsibility it is to do something, right from national leadership through the ministry, Ghana Health Service, all collaborative agencies, and the media, especially as you are doing, to support us in this regard, especially at the community level.
Two quick questions, Prof, right before we cap it all off. It's interesting because in a country that has done fairly well when it comes to dealing with COVID-19, I'm talking about Israel, they have used a lot of the Pfizer vaccine, which some are saying is the go-to vaccine now when it comes to the Delta strain. But some of those who have been inoculated are still succumbing to the Delta strain of the virus. What picture does that paint for us in terms of our own vaccination drive? In Israel, mind you, some of those who had got all the vaccinations needed of Pfizer were still succumbing to the Delta variant. What picture does that paint for us as a country?
Yes, certainly it's not surprising because we always know that vaccination will not protect everybody 100% from getting infected and also transferring the infection to others. What it does is that it protects the majority of the population, and even when you get infected, you do not become severely and critically ill. That's the point. As for people getting infected, in terms of numbers and at the population level, some will fall through and may even become ill severely. But compared to an unvaccinated population, this is way, way less. And therefore, vaccines remain protective. And truth is that all the vaccines that have been approved for use have remarkable effect on the virus. There may be challenges with the development of new variants, but by and large, if people have been fully vaccinated, they may get infected, but the worry of getting so many of them becoming critically ill, requiring intensive care, oxygen issues, and all that will then be less. Our challenge is that we have not had a lot of our population vaccinated, and therefore we are still a vulnerable population as a country, and that is where the challenge is. That is where we keep emphasizing that. Since we are not getting to vaccinate the numbers we intended in the time we intended because of the shortfalls in vaccine supply, we need to put in the measures that have served us so well even before the introduction of the vaccine.
And it gets even worse because now we're even talking of Delta Plus and all of that. But to cap off the conversation, we also know that a lot of those bringing the Delta strain, at least the majority of those who have brought the Delta strain into the country, have been international travelers from Liberia and Sierra Leone, neighboring countries. How do you feel we should deal with that situation? Should we as a country maybe push for a cessation of travel or place some travel ban on Liberia and Sierra Leone? I don't know what your thinking is on the matter.
Yes, you know, it's interesting because of the international politics and the diplomacy that we need to engage, especially when our president is the chairman of the ECOWAS. And some of these measures will not come easily. But we still need to control our borders, especially the land borders. The airports, we are doing well. We continue to strengthen the measures at the airport. But most people from these countries don't come through the airports. They come through the land borders, approved and unapproved. So we should strengthen the measures we put in place to guard our land borders. The same measures we did a few months ago, we need to strengthen it so that we protect ourselves. It's interesting to know that persons in these countries may know their status, but they think they will get better healthcare in Ghana and they will want to come to Ghana, and that is the challenge we face. And therefore, we must contain the crossing of persons from neighboring countries, especially within the West African sub-region. Much as we are looking at the airport and strengthening the measures there, we need to look at the land borders. And if we need to strengthen the deployment of soldiers along the borders again, we need to continue to do that, especially at this time.
Professor Yolson, thank you so much for interacting with us this morning. We are very grateful for your time. That is Professor Alfred Yolson, Head of Community Health with the University of Ghana Medical School. He joined us for that conversation. We're taking a break. When we return, there's more on COVID-19, but from the standpoint of teachers, education, what exactly they've been facing, the psychological, financial, economic, social impact of COVID-19 on teachers. When we return, that is the conversation we're having. Do stay. Thank you for staying. Now, COVID-19 and its impact on the educational sector, specifically teachers, is where we go to now. And 75.7% of respondents mention that COVID-19 has had a severe psychological effect on them. They talk about financial, emotional, and social areas in which they've been affected, in which the pandemic has impacted them. So how do these teachers get out of this situation? We're joined now by Dr. Eugene Dodoi. He's a clinical psychologist and lecturer with the University of Health and Allied Sciences. Peter Anti as well. He is Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Great. Let me start with you, Peter Anti. What is it that got you, getting into this drive or exploring this angle to get the survey, the results that you've actually pieced together?
Thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers.
Mr. Anti, I don't know.
Yes.
I'm hearing something in the background. So I don't know whether you have your TV or something on, or maybe alternatively, Dr. Dodoy, if you happen to have your TV on, please turn it off so we can avoid the static or the feedback. Thank you. Thank you. Peter Anti, you can go on.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. We observed during the period of the pandemic that
all right, so we shall try to get this rectified so we can get the proper understanding of what is being said so that the sound would not be echoing like we hear. Peter, can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Okay, so Dr. Dodoy, I suspect there might be some gadget on somewhere that you might.
Is it better now?
I think it's somewhat better. It's somewhat better.
Great.
Great.
Okay.
So Peter, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we observed that there have been a lot of focus on the students during this period of the pandemic, and we realized that a little attention or no attention have been given to the teacher. So as part of our research activities, we decided to zoom into the life of the Ghanaian teacher and find out how they are coping with the stress and anxiety that has characterized the COVID pandemic. So we sent out almost 5,000 questionnaires to 10 regions in the country and across 80 districts, and we got almost 4,480 responses back. We analyzed the results and we are putting out the findings today. And prominent among in the research that we realized was that most of the teachers, as you indicated in your introduction, 75% and above have indicated forcefully that the pandemic has had a psychological toll on them. And this is very, very important because we need our teachers to have a certain kind of stability of mind to be able to take care of our children. So if they are stressed and if they are very anxious, then it's not going to augur well for us in terms of the delivery of the content that they are supposed to deliver for our children. Again, a lot of empirical works have shown that stress has a negative impact on the teacher's productivity. So at the end of the day, we are so much interested in promoting learning outcomes, and that is what the ministry is pushing. That's what Ghana Education Service is pushing. We want students to perform well in their academic work. We want students to deliver, to be able to be useful to the society. But those who are supposed to deliver the content, those who are supposed to push and direct students are having a lot of psychological trauma during this pandemic, and we have not been able to institute any kind of psychosocial support for them. Then it means that our efforts to enable our students to access quality, equitable and inclusive education would come to naught because they will not be able to deliver the kind of support systems that they are supposed to do for the students because they themselves are not in the right frame of mind to do that. We also looked at the differences in terms of stress level between the males and the females, and we realized that the females are having a lot of stress as compared to the males. In terms of location, those in the urban centers had a lot of stress on them and anxiety as compared to those in the rural and peri-urban areas. Again, in terms of levels, teachers who were teaching in the primary and the junior high school level recorded a higher level of stress and anxiety as compared to those in the senior high school level. And one of the striking reasons given for teachers at the primary level was that they had to think through how they will be able to deliver the lessons daily because of the absence of requisite teaching learning resources, especially the textbook issues that we have been talking about. They also made mention of infrastructural challenges. And some of them also talked about how supervisors, I mean, what we now call school inspectors, interact with them when they come to school. They think that those interactions put a lot of stress on them. We also realized that teachers have realized students have lost a lot of learning, what we call learning loss. And in their estimation, it will take between 1 to 6 months to be able to recover some of the extent of learning loss that have been recorded in the life of the student. So basically, our report was now to throw light on the Ghanaian teacher to see what they are going through, and also provide recommendations to enable the authorities help the teacher in these times of the pandemic. And interestingly, we woke up this morning to realize that Achimota has recorded almost 135 COVID cases. And these include teachers and students. Now you will see that the focus will be on the students, and teachers will not be talked about. And that is exactly the essence of the research work that we did.
Right, and it's very interesting, the note on which you've ended. There's one member of the staff who has succumbed to COVID-19, at least as we know it. But you've mentioned as well in that research piece, Spain, China, and countries in the Arab region doing more in terms of teachers. So you feel that it is high time we moved away, not just from a focus on students, but also a focus on teachers, from what I gather. But let me quickly move on to Dr. Dodoe for a quick bit on the stress levels. Per the research, 35.2% are saying they've suffered severe levels of stress. Over 25% of the respondents are stating that their levels of anxiety have increased. And interestingly, very curious, 57.1% mentioned that they have not received any form of psychosocial report. This happens to be a problem that we have all the time. Any surprises in there, Doc, that the levels are so high of those who are feeling stressed, those who feel that their stress levels have increased, and those who are not getting any support at all on the psychosocial level?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that there are no surprises at all. And in fact, some of us expected the percentages of the values to be a bit higher than we are seeing. What we usually, if you look at the health sector, the health workers who work directly with patients who are suffering COVID, they themselves had a lot of anxiety and depressive issues. So if we look at people like teachers, these are people who have chosen a vocation that they work with other people. They want to help other people realize their dreams and stuff like that. So for them, the work they do is not just a work, but also it gives some fulfillment that, yes, I have achieved something. And for all of us, if we are frustrated in achieving our goal, all of us become stressed. So, I mean, what is in the environment? So we have the environment, the time, and the place. So people, place, and time that affects your productivity, or that frustrates you from achieving your goal, largely will be also responsible for making you, become stressed. So the environment will stress you up. So what we see here are people who want to impact children, and then we are getting them not getting that environment conducive to do the work they do. So essentially what we are saying is that, or what is happening to them is that they do not get that sense of fulfillment. I mean, forget about the salary and everything. Teachers get a lot of fulfillment from realizing that their impact has improved children's life, their quality of life, their thinking and everything. So when that is not there, they are likely to get frustrated. And I can't say something literally that when you cannot afford to give anything to your in-law, you don't also rob them or you don't steal from them. Unfortunately, that is what we seem to be doing to our teachers. They are through no fault of theirs, this like COVID came, and now technically their job was very much affected because students were not in school. They have like prepared to teach them and all that. So that joy, that fulfillment they were going to get has been taken away from them. So we expect them to be anxious, to have anxiety levels, to have high stress levels. Some of them might even get a clinical depression because they are not getting that. And then not only that has happened, the students came back. They were expected to do more than what, they were doing formally, because now they've missed some period. They're supposed to teach and catch up. And there's a new syllabus, there's a new thing altogether, which has no textbooks at all. And that, makes it worse. So I don't know what we expected from them, but this probably didn't capture the actual, trend. It is expected to be a bit much higher than what we are seeing now.
Okay.
And worst of all is the fact that we are not providing them any psychosocial support. And this is something that, now organizations and unions are realizing. So the police is doing something about it. They are providing psychosocial support to their own and all that. So teachers group especially, the employer has a duty to actually provide them with that psychosocial support, knowing very much that the stressor is there. Now, we all know an identifier, both stressor. So we expect them to be stressed. And unfortunately, we are not there for them. We are not, we are expecting them to be there for our children, but we are not there for them, unfortunately. And which is, quite disheartening. And in fact, that will be a vicious cycle that more of them are going to feel that, well, nobody likes me. Let me talk a bit about the male-female. So normally we expect anxiety and depression levels higher in women than men.
And that was something, Doc. That was something I was about to get into before I get to your own. But is there any, on the psychological plane, is there anything accounting for that significant increase in the stress levels of women as compared to men? Could there be anything that can explain that?
Yeah. So generally, when people are stressed, they respond to overcome the stress. They respond to be able to do something about the stress. So many women naturally will tend to express their anxiety and stress levels or depressive levels. Men find, unfortunately, unhealthy ways of solving that problem. They will start drinking. Problem. They will start in a bad behavior like betting or gaming. They may start to, very few people will choose a healthy one, like maybe learning a new skill. But largely, so if we take substance abuse or alcohol and drug abuse levels, we'll realize that a significant number of the men would have that problem compared to the women, because the men drink their problems off whilst the women, express their symptoms. And that is why we see that significant difference in, the male and female.
Okay, I'm going to pose this question to both of you, but I'll start with Peter and T. You are in the sector, you are a teacher of sorts. What would you say the impact of COVID-19 has been on you personally? You sampled some 4,480 people across these 3 months, but what is your personal story? Is it reflective of the research?
Yes, it's been stressful, and the fear of contracting the disease and then taking it to your family, and them the possibility of spreading it across your family and to your friends is the greatest issue here, because you are still interacting with the students. You are supposed to interact with the students, and you are supposed to assist them. You are supposed to mark their scripts, and you are supposed to also talk to them. And the tenets of the virus is said that you need to practice some of these social distancing protocols. You are supposed to clean your hands intermittently. You are supposed to put on nose masks, which sometimes even block your ability to project your voice during instructional period. So those kind of challenges, it's there, and it put a lot of pressure on you as a teacher. But if you are looking at the other teachers, and from the reports that we put across, we realize specifically with the primary school level, their ability to control class is a big issue for them, because students at the senior high school levels, that's why when you look at the stress levels for the various teachers, you will see that those at the senior high school level had a little level of stress as compared to those in the primary school level, because they indicated to us that it is difficult to control them and to ensure that they are practicing the social distances, they are not touching each other, and they are not doing all those things. So those kind of issues was very prominent in the responses that they were giving us. Again, you will also realize that they have gone through a new curriculum. They were trained to go and implement it. Then, right few months into the term or the semester, they have been asked to go home. Now they have been called back to continue what they were supposed to teach, and there is the issue of no textbooks. The issue of students have forgotten what they have already taught them. The issue of them trying to help students recover. All those things brought a lot of stress on the teachers. And I want to make a point about the male-female issue. One of the issues that came us forcefully was the fact that in the school system, most of the students tend to go to the female teachers more than the male teachers, because they see the female teachers as mother figures. So in all challenges and issues, the female teachers are brought forward than the male teachers, and that increased the level of stress on them, because the anxiety is, if you are coming to me, what is the likelihood that I'm going to contract the disease, and then I'll be taking it home for my family to also contract it. So those are issues that increase the stress level for the females as compared to the males.
All right, interesting point you make. When I come back to you after speaking with Dr. Dodoy on the same point, I'll be looking at some of the proposals you've made on the back of this, including the Ghana Health, the Ghana Education Service, focusing more on the welfare of teachers. But Dr. Dodoy, what has been your own lived experience when it comes to this matter we are discussing, the psychological, social, economic impact of COVID-19 on you as a lecturer?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. We're not seen as teachers. I don't know why we call lecturers, but we are also teachers, and it's very much affected a lot of us, because we are not only teaching, and unfortunately, some of us we teach medicine. So I'm a psychiatrist, and I teach mental health. So the challenge was that when other doctors, other teachers get the condition, they fall on you to psychologically help them. So just as Peter was talking about, so unfortunately, some of us even do not get access to the services that we provide to others. So for me as a lecturer and as a psychiatrist, the biggest challenge was not only myself getting the infection, but my students getting their infection, my colleagues getting their infection, and the parents of the students, how to manage them. So we had a lot of them. Luckily, UHAS had a very good, so we formed a response team for the faculty and a response team for the students. And there was clear guidelines on what to do if a student suspects they have infection. Right. And if a faculty suspect they have infection. And then in the School of Medicine where I teach, we actually sent out daily surveys to the students to assess their stress levels and to find out if they have any concerns of getting infected. Because unfortunately for us, we cannot hold all our lectures on internet, on Zoom or something like that, because students will need to see the patient, right, talk to the patient, examine the patient. So they came into very close contact, and definitely some of them got the infection, and then their parents were worried. So sometimes we have to leave the students and to manage their parents. Wow. And when faculty had the infection, a lot of their families were worried and all that. So yes, we got the infection as well. Our students got the infections, and then unfortunately for us, we have to manage our colleagues and our students who get the infection. So it was, it is very stressful. Right. But again, that is why the psychosocial support is very necessary.
And the point to be made is that
many people could fall back on us, and we assisted them. The same way, even us too, we learn to get help. So we, as a faculty of mental health in Ghana, we also supported each other throughout this period, and we continue to do so. So it's very important that people realize when there's a stressor, that, if you are going through such thing, you are definitely going to be affected one way or the other, and know where to seek help. And we are not many, but currently, we have a lot of people who have been trained who can provide that support. And it's very important we make use of that support.
The interesting takeaway from that is you guys have been providing, specifically, I've been providing certain services to people, but on the same level, you may not be getting that kind of response or help when you need it. But to wrap the conversation, Peter Anti, let's talk about, in the next minute, let's talk about some of the proposals you've put forward in terms of boosting the welfare of teachers. Per your report, what can you share with us? Peter Anti, are you still with us? Hello, Mr. Anti. Hello, Mr. Anti, can you hear me? Well, we're trying to reconnect with Peter Anti, Executive Director, Institute for Education Studies. Peter Anti, can you hear me now? Right. It's unfortunate that at this juncture, Peter Anti's connection is not operating like we would have wanted it to, but they also come out with a number of proposals moving forward in terms of dealing with this menace or this situation where teachers are going through a lot of psychological and other forms of issues that need to be dealt with. And one of them has to do with the education sector actually focusing on the welfare of these teachers to ensure that they are taken care of psychologically, not just physically, not just financially, but that the psychological help is also brought to bear. Let me wrap with you, Dr. Dodoi. So moving forward, what would be your final comments on this matter in a minute, sir?
Yeah, I would like to encourage the labor unions to demand that their employers have what we call employee assistance program. Hello. So employee assistance programs, basically, what it does is that it's have an HR policy such that when people are stressed, when people are using alcohol and drugs, somebody identifies it early and then we intervene. So there should be somebody in the facility, in the organization, to be able to identify people, or people can go to them when they have these psychosocial challenges, and then provide that, so that person in the organization will be the link between the psychosocial services and the employees who suffer same. So this should be something that HR people should be implementing. And if they are not doing it, the labor unions are supposed to demand it, that it should be there for them. We are doing something for our students, but it's not enough. And I think it's very important that we have something in school that helps students with.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Dodoi. Let's also wrap with you, Peter Anti. Can you hear me now, Peter?
Yes, I can hear you.
Which, I mean, it's good, but not enough. And this replicated on all institutions where students get help that they need, that's psychosocial support. And we provide same for the teachers. And let's not forget the non-teaching staff. They also go through similar challenges, and we should be there for them to support them.
Peter, Dr. Dodoi, thank you for that point that you've made. And that's how we're wrapping. But Peter Anti, I'll give you a minute. Succinctly paint for us the picture. What are the proposals you've put forward? Continuous professional development, welfare. In not more than a minute, let's quickly take a look at some of what you're proffering.
Thank you very much. So we realize that support systems comes from the family, friends, and then basically religious institutions, which means that the employers are not doing much for the teachers. So we are saying that the Ghana Education Service and Ministry of Education should put in measures to support teachers, and especially the teacher unions. There should be measures to also support them. We should also look at how we are practicing this kind of continuous professional development day, which there's one day that
Unfortunately, well, we've lost Peter again, but thank you very much for joining the conversation, Peter Anti, of course, with iFirst, and Dr. Eugene Dodoi of the University of Health and Allied Sciences. We move on now, and the discourse focuses on improving Ghana's maritime industry, and the Ghana Navy is hosting the International Maritime Defense and Exhibition Conference. More on that when we return from the break. Thank you for staying, and this is where it gets interesting because we're hosting the Ghana Navy, and they, in partnership with Great Minds Events, will host the second edition of the International Maritime Defense and Exhibition Conference at the Kempinski Gold Coast Hotel. And this edition will bring about greater participation from regional air forces. But to get into the details now, we have joining the conversation Naval Captain Bright Atiayao and Squadron Leader Christopher Gada. Both of them joined the conversation this morning as we get into the Ghana Navy hosting the International Maritime Defense Exhibition Conference. Gentlemen, a very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining. But let's start with, even for me, this is the first time I'm hearing about the IMDEC. Yeah. So I will start with you, Naval Captain. What is the IMDEC? What is it all about?
Well, thank you for having us on the show today. And good morning to our viewers and listeners. IMDC, which we call IMDEC, is the International Maritime Defense and Exhibition Conference. That's IMDEC. And this conference brings together chiefs of navies and air forces across Africa to come together, not the chiefs alone, but important maritime experts to come together and discuss pertinent maritime issues like the insecurity we are facing in our region, like the Gulf of Guinea specifically.
Right.
And this year, like you rightly mentioned, there's a greater participation of the Air Force because the Ghana Air Force, for the first time, has become a partner to AMDEC 2021. So we have also coming heads of air forces in the region to come and collaborate. This is because we have seen the importance and the significance of air and maritime cooperation in fighting maritime insecurity.
Let me come to you, Squadron Leader. Why is Ghana hosting it this time around? It's the second time, but the choice of Ghana, what went into it?
I think the conference is a brainchild of the Ghana Navy. They came up with the idea that it's important to bring together all the navies in the sub-region to address the common issues that affect all countries in the sub-region as far as their line of operation is concerned. So they brought it up, and so they are championing it along the sub-region. And we are happy to be on board this time.
Right. And we also know that the Kempinski Hotel, Gold Coast, is going to be the venue, for the conference. But what can you tell us about the theme for this conference and why that theme?
Well, you see, first of all, before I get to the theme, if you allow me, I'll tell you about the objective of the conference.
Right, please do.
And the objective of the conference this time is to ensure to deepen cooperation and interoperability among the African navies.
Right.
And also
all of these about 15 countries that are coming together.
Yeah, we need to deepen our cooperation. We've been cooperating, but we want to deepen the cooperation and interoperability, and also prefer some interagency way of solving maritime problems. You know, there are various maritime institutions. Everybody wants to be working individually, but we need to gather some synergy so that once we all come together, we'll be able to go the way forward by going interagency.
Right. So of course, if you're cooperating better, then of course some of these things, even working together, becomes less problematic.
Exactly. So, and also one thing we want also to do is to show that there is a link between a secure maritime domain and a developed blue economy.
Wow.
Hence our theme. So our theme for this year's conference is maritime security and trade, a nexus between a secure maritime domain and a developed blue economy.
Wow. So that's interesting on the back of the objective that you stated. So Squadron Leader, coming to you then, what would be your expected outcomes? At least we know what the objective is. What are your expected outcomes?
So basically, after the conference, we expect to come up with a working framework that would be able to, like you said, create that synergy between all the countries affected by the issues that are being discussed, to be able to come up with a framework that would enable them overcome the challenges that they face at sea, from ranging from piracy, all the excesses that at sea that hinder on the national development for all the countries along the sub-region. So at the end of the day, we expect to be able to couch a framework that would help us better deal with those challenges at sea.
Okay. Now, in terms of the program proper, on the said day, there are going to be a number of attendees and some very prominent ones as well. Captain, can you walk us through, for example, the opening will be done by the Vice President and the closing by the Chief of Defense Staff. Tell us a bit more about who else you are expecting and who can attend, actually.
Wow. Thank you for the question. Apart from the over 15 chiefs of navies and air forces, we also have our international partners. There are representatives from African Command. There is representative from the United Kingdom. There are representatives from the ECOWAS Commission, Gulf of Guinea Commission.
Right.
And we have the Interregional Coordinating Center from at the ICC. And all other important maritime stakeholders in the region will be represented. Not forgetting our own political leadership.
Right.
The ministries, related ministries like the Ministries of Fisheries and Aquaculture Development. We have the Internal Ministry because we have the Marine Police. We have the ports and other coastal institutions who will be attending.
Right. Tell us, Squadron Leader, then. I mean, it's obviously going to be big. It's going to be a mammoth event. But what is the program lineup? What's on the agenda? So very quickly.
So it's going to be a 2-day program, starting on the 7th, tomorrow. And there are going to be a series of keynote speeches. We are going to have discussions as to the issues that concern us mostly and how we would overcome them. So we have a series of panel discussions. I think for the 2-day period, there's going to be 6 panel discussions to talk about the very critical issues, right, and how to deal with those issues. In between those, there will be workshops in teams of individuals discussing the issues as they are and prefer solutions to them as we go forward.
Right. So what would be then, I mean, the Air Force is going to have quite a role in this entire enterprise. Maybe you could highlight that and also your final words, as we get ready, gear up for this all-important conference, Captain.
Well, please, if you may allow me, I want to highlight a bit more on the program outline.
Okay.
It is actually starting tomorrow.
Right.
With site visits to the Western Naval Command and then to the Air Force Base in Takoradi.
Okay.
And this is to give the delegates and the SBTs the first-hand view of the capabilities of the Ghana Navy and the Air Force, so that when they are in their discussions trying to prefer solutions, they will have the capabilities of the two services in mind to do that.
Right.
Then to your substantive question of my last words, I want to say that this conference is a very important one, because as you may be aware, the situation we face, unfortunately, at sea, with piracy affecting our fishing industry, it has raised a lot of concern from relevant industries. And it is pertinent to note that the relevant industries are taking some action at addressing the situation at sea. And one of the outcomes we are expecting from the conference is for them to come up with strategies and also outline the modalities of ensuring that those strategies are followed.
Right.
And we also have the added advantage of our president being the chair of ECOWAS. Once they come out with those strategies, he will bring the member countries to be able to bring that to fruition. So we hope that going forward, the insecurity at sea will be resolved, if not eliminated completely. Thank you.
Very positive development, and we pray for the very best as you host this conference. Thank you very much, Naval Captain Atiayo and Squadron Leader Gada, for joining the conversation. We're going to keep close contact and see how we can also aid this process. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming through.
Thank you for having us.
And as we move from naval and maritime matters, showbiz with IB is up next. He's doing something right behind the camera. He'll be on shortly. Do stay.